Fråga? Catchboxen.
Those who go play there.
Okej, och det är på en ytterligare. Det går inte att köra på samma sätt. Det där är bara för en kanal.
Ready? Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Behzad, and I'm a nurse anesthetist, and at the same time, I'm part of the MSF Sweden board. And yes, I'm so happy to see so many of you coming here this evening. And tonight we have Severine Kalouet. Sorry for the pronunciation.
No,
My
it's
French
very
is not the best. And you are a gynecologist specialist and from OCB Medical Department. And I haven't been informed for how many years you've been part of MSF, but what I've heard, you're a specialist, expert in this area. And tonight this evening we're gonna discuss maternal challenges in complex contexts. So, I mean, I know VMSF 2017 treated 10,600,000 outpatients, and amongst them were 290,000 birth assisted. And around 19,000, I think, related to sexual violence as well. I mean, that context is very wide, and then we have opened for other settings as well, like unsafe abortion as well. And we've been part of the outbreak response with reproductive health as well, and obstructive and prolonged labor, and cervical cancer, and sexual violence, and as well HIV, AIDS, and PMTCT as well. But I'm going to keep myself short because I'm going to give over this to Severine to continue to give us more information.
So thank you very much, Behzad, for the introduction. I'll first give a very short introduction about women's health. What do we do? Already Behzad mentioned some numbers. And where do we do what we do? Also a little bit pointed at obstetricians and midwives, because I'm an obstetrician and we need obstetricians and midwives on the field. And then I'll talk more in detail about two projects where I've worked myself. One is HOST in Afghanistan, where MSF assisted 23,000 births in 2017. And one is Masisi, the hospital of Masisi in Congo, in the eastern part of Congo, where MSF assisted in 2017 around 6,000 births. So what do we do in MSF and where do we want to focus on? We want, first of all, to focus on actions with a direct impact on mortality, maternal mortality, but also mortality of the baby, neonatal mortality. So our priority is access to safe delivery. For the obstetricians, they are familiar with the abbreviation CMONC and BMONC. So we want safe delivery and also access to higher care, cesarean section, blood transfusion for women who need it. Also, we are involved in termination of pregnancy on request and on post-abortion care, because it also saves women's life, and in postnatal care after delivery for mother and for the child. We want to prevent mortality and morbidity by providing quality antenatal care, by providing family planning, by doing prevention of mother-to-child transmission of HIV. We are involved in some projects in cervical cancer and fistula surgery and fistula prevention. And then, as a separate subject, we are also involved, and Behzad already mentioned, last year the whole MSF movement treated 19,000 victims or survivors of sexual violence. And we also have a policy, so a document that explains what is important in sexual and reproductive health and why is it important. And what do we do? So this is the whole MSF movement, not only OCB. I assume that the audience here is familiar with the complex structure of MSF. I work since 2008 on and off for the organization, and I don't understand everything, so it's very complex. But so all the operational centers, the 5 who organize projects on the field. So Behzad already mentioned, we nearly 300,000 women delivered in an MSF supported structure, of which 10% were cesarean sections. We mentioned the care for sexual violence, 19,000 mainly women, but also men and boys received this care. In total, we did almost 4,000 terminations of pregnancy on request in 2017. This is a huge increase, also because internally in the movement, we really decided to give termination on pregnancy a boost. If you are a regular MSF donor or if you follow the website, you will have seen it. Just to give an example, 2 or 3 years ago, we did 500 termination of pregnancies on request. So the decision of the organization to make this activity more accessible to women worldwide really has shown that in the numbers that it's a success. We did nearly 1 million antenatal care consultations. We are in small projects involved in cervical cancer screening, and this year we participated in two vaccination campaigns. OCB in Zimbabwe and OCP in Malawi. It's also the 2 countries with the highest prevalence, so the highest number of cervical cancer in the world. So that at least was good. And then there's a 3rd project a small project in the Philippines, also where OCP vaccinates. And then fistula surgery the last years has been less on the agenda of MSF. There is just one section, Paris, with a permanent fistula project in Nigeria. I would personally like to see more fistula surgery in MSF, and I hope the next years we will do more campaigns, and maybe even because previously Brussels section had a permanent fistula project in Burundi. Maybe one day have a permanent project again. And also family planning, we did 150,000 consultations. So family planning is also very important in sexual and reproductive health. And then where do we do what we do? This is where we do vaginal deliveries. And also if you see the size of the circle, it sort of corresponds to the activity in the country. So you see the largest bulk of deliveries for the whole MSF movement is in Afghanistan. 1 in 4 of all MSF babies is born in Afghanistan, and if you just look at OCB, it's more than half of our babies born in Afghanistan. Pakistan also, Middle East, and then mostly Sub-Saharan Africa. We also, OCB had a project in Venezuela where we just did drug supply and support. And then in there's OCBA has a project in Latin America, and then I think it's Amsterdam managing a large maternity in Haiti. But if you look at where do we do deliveries, it's mainly Sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East, and then Afghanistan, Pakistan. If you also look like where do we have gynecologists, positions, this is also all the sections together, mainly Sub-Saharan Africa and then also the Middle East, Afghanistan, Pakistan. The division is a little bit unequal. Why? For instance, in Afghanistan, well, in total we have the 3 gynecologists positioned in Khost, then 1 in the south of the country in Lashkargah intermittently for Amsterdam, and 1 in Kabul for Paris. So we need 5 obstetricians for Afghanistan, while, for instance, Geneva has a project in Kenya where they only need 1 obstetrician. So, and Afghanistan is more complicated to fill than Kenya, because in Afghanistan you also have the restrictions that the obstetrician by default needs to be female for cultural reasons, and also female of the right nationality. For safety reasons, for instance, we don't send American, English, Israeli, South Korean, Pakistani nationals to Afghanistan. So this, let me put it this way. If you have a Swedish passport and you're a female obstetrician, you're bound to get offered Afghanistan at one stage. And also a little bit the same restrictions we have for Yemen, for instance. It's also only female for cultural reasons and also only certain nationalities. And there's one country that I forgot to color. I saw it today. It's a gynecologist position in Iraq, also for Geneva, and they also have the same restrictions. So for gynecologists, what are common myths? And if I speak to colleagues or friends, they still think it. So for instance, you need 6 to 9 months commitment, and I'm in active practice. This is impossible. It's true, hospitals don't really like their specialists to go for 6 to 9 months, but for obs and gynae specialists and also for other specialities, if you're an anesthetist and following online or a surgeon, we are sometimes and almost always, if you have the right passport and willing to go to the settings, we are happy with 6 weeks, sometimes even 4 weeks, and especially when you have done already some missions, sometimes someone with a commitment of 3 weeks can be a major solution for a problem in a project. And another myth is also MSF only works in war settings or unstable countries, and I would not like to work there. That's a perfectly valid argument. My family also did not particularly like me going to Afghanistan. But there are also projects in stable settings, as for instance Sierra Leone is perfectly stable, Ivory Coast, Kenya also, and some parts of South Sudan. I would not call South Sudan a perfectly stable country. I think that's absolutely not true, but some parts of South Sudan at least are stable. So if you say I don't want to work in unstable countries, the organization can make an effort and try to sort of find where it would be possible to go. If your dream was to work in Zanzibar or in Brazil for MSF, I'm really sorry, but this is not one of the options. And then this was the short introduction. I will speak about 2 projects more in detail. One is the maternity in Khost, Afghanistan. It's the largest maternity of the whole MSF movement, 23,000 births. So almost 10% of all babies in MSF is born in Khost. And then Masisi in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And I'm planning to stop latest like at 7:15 and to leave ample time for questions. If you have a really pertinent question that you want to ask, just raise your hand and I will answer, or try to answer it in between. So, maternity care in Afghanistan. This is from the World Health Organization. So, at one stage, Afghanistan was the country with the worst maternal mortality in the world. It was during Taliban times. This is now more than 15 years ago, but it's still not a good place to give birth. 2/3 of all births have no skilled attendant, and also 40% of women have no antenatal care. If you look at MSF in Afghanistan, MSF was already long time present in Afghanistan before 2004. Even like as a milestone, they put here a program for displaced Afghans in 2001, but even before 2001, MSF was present in Afghanistan. In 2004, one of the very sad things in MSF history happened. 5 MSF staff was killed, and MSF decided also to leave Afghanistan and left for 5 years. One small, for me at least, very touching detail. This young lady was 30 years old when she was killed. Her name is Hélène de Berg. She was the field co, and she was a Belgian. And her father is still a member of MSF in Belgium, and he was also a long time, I think, board member, and he was supporting MSF's decision very strongly to go back to Afghanistan in 2009, because he said he heard so many stories of his daughter who loved working there, and he sort of felt that it was honoring her memory to go back to Afghanistan. And so then in 2012, MSF opened the maternity in Khost. And in 2015, also one of the very sad milestones in MSF happened. So the trauma hospital in Kunduz, where we did not do any maternal health, was bombed by mistake by the Americans, completely unexpected, and 42 people died, of which 14 staff, doctors, nurses, cleaners. The Americans apologized extensively, but yeah, the consequence of a mistake were the death of 42 people. So what did MSF do in Afghanistan? The projects where we do maternal health are 2 in Kabul, 1 in Khost, and then in Lashkargah, where MSF is supporting a general hospital of the Ministry of Health. There is also a delivery unit with around 9,000 births a year. So as I said, we assisted around 70,000 births in total. The largest of all maternity hospitals, as said, is in Khost, but also OCB is supporting Ahmed Shababa Hospital in Kabul, and they also had 20,000 births in 2017. So the Khost maternity, some pictures of the project. You will not see adult women on the picture. You will only see babies and buildings and beds, because in the culture it is so difficult to take picture of women. You cannot. It's also a security of risk for us and for the woman if anyone takes a picture of her face. But these were 2 babies. This was in the OT. This is a picture with only expats on the picture, doing a cesarean section in the operation room. And this was the delivery room a few years ago, very clean, without patients, with 6 delivery beds, while now we have increased to 10 delivery beds because of the increasing workload. And this is the building from the outside. It's a structure that MSF built. It's a completely private MSF structure, so the Ministry of Health, well, they are partners, we talk to them, but they are not involved in the management of the hospital. And this also to show, like, one of the major bottlenecks we encountered while opening the hospital in 2012 was the lack of qualified female staff. This is a map of female literacy of the UN of 2009. I was looking for a more updated version, but I did not find any on the internet. But female literacy in Khost is 2%. And it has not increased spectacularly the last 9 years. And this also means literate in Pashto, not in English. So in an area of the world where only 2% of women can read or write, you can imagine that it's very difficult to find qualified female staff. And the only place in Afghanistan where more than 30% of women knows how to read or write is the capital, Kabul. It's also typical that a capital always is doing better in terms of female employment, female literacy rates than a rural area where let's say where women's rights are absolutely not high on the agenda. Also, as a woman, life in Kabul is easier in the sense of you do see women on the street, all with headscarves, but sometimes even girls in jeans, always, well, wearing sort of a long t-shirt, but girls can go out. In Khost, you hardly ever see a woman on the street, and if you see a woman, it's almost always in burqa. Because culturally seen, and also for the safety of the woman or of the family, you just cannot go out. We had 2 relocated staff, 3 actually, the pharmacist also, but 2 doctors with surgical skills living with us in the compound, 2 young women whose family was in Kabul. Because in Khost, you cannot live as a woman on your own. You always need a man to live with you. If not, you are considered to be a prostitute or a loose woman, and it is even dangerous for your own security. So they were living with us in the expat compound because there was no other place they could live. They did not have family in Khost. So that's also one of the solutions we tried to find for the lack of qualified female staff. And also, to be really honest, if I was a woman gynecologist, I also would prefer to work in Kabul, where I can go out, have a social life, visit family, visit friends, than to live in such a secluded area as Khost, where everything I do also is being judged by the community and being gossiped about. So what do we do in Khost? We do a lot of things. We do 2,000 deliveries a month, so on average 60, 70 a day. We have an integrated neonatal ward, so we admit the sick and the premature babies there. The staff, we have 12 permanent international staff. Also, a large part of them is female. All gynecologists need to be female, the midwives need to be female, the anaesthetist is preferably female. We have started sending now also male expatriates, and it is accepted by the community, but it's easier if she's female. Why? A male cannot enter the delivery room. So if you have a woman bleeding there, the anaesthetist cannot come if he's a man. If she's a woman, there is not this problem. And you also do see that our female staff is more at ease with a woman and a little bit less, how would I say, less spontaneous with a man. They start covering their face more, covering their arms more. They do feel more at ease in a women-only environment. And we employ around 300 national staff. Now it's even a bit more. I think it's 350. Of which 60% women. And not only the midwives and the doctors are the doctors in the delivery room are female. We do have some local male anaesthetists and some local male pediatricians, because we did not find any qualified women. But for instance, also cleaners in the maternity need to be female. And so MSF also provided a job for many women, and some of them never ever had a job before. So our caesarean section rate is very low. Even there are months that it's less than 3%. And this is also a deliberate choice to keep it as low as possible. And the reason is, first of all, that average parity, the number of children per woman for the whole of Afghanistan is around 6. But in Khost, we think, there are no reliable data, but we think it's at least 7 or 8. And the problem is, in a culture where you still have 7 or 8 children, if you do many caesarean sections, you compromise the whole obstetric future of the patient. We all have done, well, 3 caesarean sections is generally quite safe. We all have done a 4th or a 5th one, but it is taking risks for future pregnancies. And another reason is also that survival of premature babies in our project, and especially babies of less than 1.5 kg, is not good. Survival, if the baby is less than 1.5 kg, is 20% or less. So to do a caesarean section for a baby with only 20% or less, if the baby is 1 kg, then the survival rate is 1% or less. This is causing a lot of damage to the mother, without having at least a reasonable chance to get an alive baby in return. So we don't do as many caesarean sections as at home. I think caesarean sections rate in Sweden is now 17, 18%. Yeah, in Belgium we just passed the 20%. 17. Yeah, so essentially, why do we do caesarean sections? The main reason is obstructed labor, so maternal reasons. And the second main indication was bleeding before delivery, antepartum hemorrhage. We offer family planning. All methods are available and free of charge: condoms, pills, injections, implants since beginning this year, and intrauterine devices, but it's not so popular. Only 30% of women accepts, and many of them just say, yes, yes, you can give me condoms. We give 12 condoms, and we think they just say yes to do us a favor. Not sure if they're ever going to use the condoms. Family planning was plainly forbidden during Taliban times, and still the pressure on women and on families to have many children, and especially many boys, is enormous. So we are immensely accepted in the community, and this is the guarantee for our safety, because it is a special place on the world map safety-wise, and apart from MSF in this province, there are very few other actors. The Red Cross, ICRC is there, but they don't do healthcare. They do safe burial of bodies, and they work in prisons. And then there was a refugee camp, refugees coming from a province in Pakistan, Waziristan. There was one French NGO called Solidarité who did water and sanitation in the camp. But apart from these organizations, no one else is there, especially because it's so complicated to work there safety-wise. And also the emphasis really on training of national staff, midwives and doctors, because a midwife, when she starts working for us, very often is a 19-year-old girl with a few words of English and not the basic education. Very often is not that good. But we see also you can work with staff if the basic education is not that good, provided they are motivated to learn and that you offer also enough trainings and enough possibilities to teach them. So 2,000 deliveries per month, how busy is that? So we are more busy than the busiest maternity ward in New York. They have 1,200. And the busiest maternity ward in Cairo, they have 1,500. I once saw a documentary that said that the busiest maternity in the world was in Vietnam, 45,000 births a year. And I found the busiest in the United States was in Georgia, Atlanta, I think, Georgia, I think, and it was 27,000 births a year. So I do think we are in the list of 20 most busy maternities in the world. So it is a busy place. And well, we do encounter quite some challenges. One of the first challenges is like we underestimate the lack of qualified female staff when we started this project. Like when we started the project, we opened job vacancies for 8 national doctors and we found 3. But I'm not even talking about specialists, just doctors. So, and the same is true for instance, female anesthetists. In the beginning, we thought we really would like to have female Afghani anesthetists, be it anesthetic nurse or anesthetic doctor. And then we saw that it's impossible to find. So the only way to have females is to train nurses from scratch to become anesthetic nurses. And then also sometimes the workload is more than we can handle safely, because on average, it's 60, 70 births a day, but maternities always are fluctuating. So you have quiet days with only 50 a day. Then the staff says, like, we have nothing to do, we are bored, only 50 today. And you have days with more than 100, and that's really not nice. Because you really pray at days that it's more than 100, that you don't have a serious case there. Because if all your midwives are running around with the normal deliveries and you have one really serious patient, be it an eclampsia patient or a postpartum hemorrhage, you need 2 or 3 staff to take care of really sick patients. And if you have more than 100 deliveries a day, we just don't have the staff, even though continuously recruitment is ongoing. And the midwives, I mean, we employ more than 100, I think, at this moment, and a day shift is 11 only in delivery and labor room. A night shift is 10. But still, there are moments that you think this is unfair towards the staff because they're running from one part to the other. And also, if something happens, we really cannot blame the staff because it's just too much work. And so also we try to find creative solutions for human resources challenges. The first is more expat presence. In the beginning, we thought, okay, we start with 2 expat gynecologist positions. Hopefully, after 1 year, we can go to 1. This, unfortunately, is at this moment in time not possible. We also had long time an expat nurse in the OT for trainings. We still have 1 expat anesthetist. We used to have 2, but this we could reduce to 1 because the national staff is so capable. A relocation package, for instance, I gave already the example of the 2 doctors from Kabul, female doctors, who live with us and who stay for free with us in the expat compound, because we are so happy to have them. And also something we discovered was our midwives, and a little bit less the doctors, but definitely the midwives. They really are part of the culture. If in the culture you should have 6 or 7 children to be a good woman, many of the midwives also have 6 or 7 children or more. So MSF saw that the only way to keep them working, because they breastfeed for 2 years or at least for 1 year, as also WHO recommends to breastfeed so long, to provide childcare. And childcare, if you're employing midwives, should be 24 hours, 24, 7 days in 7, because they do night shifts. So MSF also has nannies on the payroll, I think 5 or 6 in Gost, just to be able to keep our female staff working so that they can breastfeed during working hours. When it's quiet, they go to the kindergarten to breastfeed the baby. Which is actually much better than in my country, because childcare 24 hours, 24 doesn't exist. And also we provided, and still are providing, but less, because there's less need, English classes and computer literacy classes, both for male staff as for female staff. And one other solution, because for instance, a woman cannot come alone to her work, because a woman cannot go out alone in Gost. So if she cannot come alone, the husband needs to bring her, the brother-in-law, the father-in-law, even like a son of 15 years should walk with his mother, because the mother cannot walk alone. So one of the possible solutions is also hiring couples. At least that's easier for a woman to get to her job. So what we started in 2012 was the referral hospital. What we noticed was that we were overwhelmed already after 6 months, and that the workload also was still increasing. Like in 2013, I think we had 12,000 births. 2014, 15,000. 2015, 18,000. And then, last year, 23,000. So the workload really doubled in 5 years' time. And we said we need to find solutions, especially for the normal deliveries. And MSF started in 2017 also supporting 5 of the 13 healthcare centers, so for primary healthcare, for normal deliveries and family planning in the Gost province. And the support did work in the sense of the healthcare centers before MSF had like 30 deliveries a month, and with MSF support, and we also pay the salaries there, for instance, of midwives. Because before, a midwife had a ridiculous 36-hour shift. So you start Monday morning and you only finish Tuesday evening. Of course, the staff was going home during their shift. So we are employing in each health center 2 midwives, and we do, for instance, supply if essential drugs are lacking. It's another Afghani NGO who manages the health center, but we are supporting too. And we do see that the deliveries in the health centers have at least doubled in each health center, and in another health center have tripled. So this also means that the population knows that in the health center they are offering quality care for free and that the staff is there. So we do consider it a success. And what we see for now, it's still early days, but in 2018 at least, it seems that the workload is stable in the referral hospital. I think up till now, it seems that we will have about the same amount of births than in 2017, so around 23,000, but not like 26,000. And one of the reasons is we support the health centers, and another reason is also that we support more and more the government hospital also in the province. So we try at least to have the normal deliveries not delivering at our structure, or some of the normal deliveries. And also, like, you can calculate like how many of the women in this is the Gost province and the 13 districts in the province. Khost is one of the 34 provinces in Afghanistan. You can calculate according to the population, which is always a little bit like no one knows exactly how many people live there, but there are estimations. You can calculate like how many of the population, which percentage of the population comes to deliver in our health center. And what we see is, especially of the central districts in Khost, far more people than we would expect even come and deliver here. Why is it more than 100%? For several reasons. We also notice that people come from districts outside Khost and, for instance, stay in the last month of pregnancy with their family in Khost. And another reason is also 10–15% of the patients whom we see are nomads. They are called kuchis. And the nomads also, they travel around, but if they need to deliver, many of them also stay in Khost center at 8 months pregnant and deliver at our hospital. And you see, like also the central districts, we are covering 100%. The more far away districts, we are covering 75% of all deliveries. Where do the other 25% deliver? Still some home deliveries are ongoing, and you do have some very small private facilities. But MSF in this province is covering, according to what we can calculate, at least 70% of all deliveries in the hospital, in the referral centers, and with our support to the government hospital. So in this province, for many women and for many babies, MSF is a lifeline. So, what I also wanted to oops. Okay. I wanted to show 2 short videos. One video is of Aurélie. She's an illustrator, and she made a comic book about life in Khost. And I will also pass it around so that people can, look at it during the presentation, exactly because it's so complicated to take pictures there. So Aurélie is a French illustrator of children's books, and she's part of a network called the Link Inc., and it's socially engaged artists who want to make change in society by art. And so Aurélie was 10 days in Khost and was captivated by what she saw. And she made a comic book. And I will show a short video of Aurélie talking about her experiences in Khost. Also a nice detail of the story. So it's Aurélie's job. So MSF agreed with Aurélie that she would make a 10-page comic book about life in Khost and what she saw. And Aurélie was so fascinated by her subject that she made a 26-page comic book, and MSF did not need to pay anything extra. She said, I'm doing it because I love the subject, and it's impossible to capture everything just in 10 pages. So this is Aurélie.
Je suis partie avec Médecins sans frontières en Afghanistan à Khost. C'est une zone tribale Pashtun. MSF gère une grosse maternité là-bas. C'était ma première mission sur le terrain comme ça avec une ONG. Les gens n'aiment pas du tout être en photo. MSF a vraiment du mal à montrer au monde extérieur ce qu'ils font là-bas et l'importance que ça a. Le dessin permet de bifurquer de cette contrainte. J'avais un peu peur d'ailleurs au début, je me disais s'ils n'aiment pas les photos, est-ce que le dessin ça va pas être aussi mal vu en fait, le fait que je les regarde fixement, ça a vraiment permis de créer tout de suite un il fallait que je mette en scène une des deux qui a mal, donc qui est enceinte et qui est pliée en deux parce qu'elle a vraiment mal au ventre. C'était un défi, on va dire, graphique, mais que j'ai trouvé intéressant en fait de représenter l'expression corporelle, etc. alors qu'on est sous un grand truc de tissu. Ce que je trouve intéressant, c'est de profiter de ce que je sais faire, de mon travail, mais pouvoir en faire quelque chose d'utile, entre guillemets. Donc là, c'était vraiment la grosse expérience et en fait, j'ai adoré. Donc j'aimerais bien faire ce genre de choses aussi souvent que possible. Voilà.
So Aurélie also made drawings of Khost outside the hospital. So you see the Afghani flag there, you see the market, children playing, a man there, and as I said, hardly ever a woman. And if you see a woman, almost always in burqa. Only very old women can show their face on the street, or girls below 12 years old. But after that, it's always in burqa. And this is Aurélie drawing the female staff. So all staff in the comic book knew that they were being drawn and they loved it. The only one who wanted with his name in the comic book of the Afghani staff was the male pediatrician, Dr. Akbar. So the women found it okay to be there with the drawing, but not with their name. And also one of the reasons why they say it is it's for our own security. My husband will not like it, my family will not like it. So this is the vaccinator filling in the vaccination card. So we vaccinate babies against polio, BCG, so tuberculosis, and hepatitis B after birth. Afghanistan is also one of the few countries in the world where polio is still endemic. Pakistan too. This is a health promoter talking about contraception with drawings, why contraception is important. This is Aurélie, she's an artist, so she was also captivated by the different colors and the different uniforms that the staff was wearing, like health promoter in purple, a midwife assistant in pink, midwife in blue, a cleaner in green. So for her, she really loved the different colors. This was in Kabul, where she was one day in the hospital, and she also was touched by the fact that the doctor said, look at this baby girl, she doesn't know just yet the obstacles she'll have to face. And when she was in Khost, also, well, this is another baby in Kabul, so the people had attached an amulet to the baby to protect the baby from the evil eye, and what they also do is they color the eyes of the baby with like a kind of makeup with kohl, and it's also to protect the baby. So the future for Khost maternity, this is a quite complicated question. When we opened the hospital, we foresaw to stay at least 5 years, and now the only real exit strategy will be if the situation improves in maternal and child health, and if the global situation improves at country level. And unfortunately for Afghanistan, this is really not likely. The violence is increasing year by year. We do support the hospital of the Ministry of Health. Also, if ever MSF is leaving, the Ministry of Health will have to take again a much bigger role in maternity, in the maternity, in maternal and child health. We continue the support of the health centers and the referral system, so an ambulance. We also continue the training of the staff. So one of the bottlenecks, as said, was the lack of qualified staff. And the problem is also that to send Afghani staff to Europe for trainings, first of all, is very expensive, and secondly, they don't get a visa, or it takes a very long time, and the visa can be annulled at the last moment. So what MSF is doing is, for instance, sending 1 or 2 trainers to the field to train the staff there, like an ALSO training. It's advanced life support in obstetrics, which is cheaper. and practically more feasible than sending staff to Europe or to Dubai for trainings. And also it's challenging to vision an end of the project in the sense of, well, I sincerely hope that it is not going to be a white elephant, because the budget of the project was for 2017 $4.5 million, and for 2018 probably will be even a little bit higher because budgets do increase. There are not many NGOs who can take over this big structure in such a complicated place to work in. And also the Ministry of Health will have a lot of difficulties maintaining the same quality. Also, for instance, one of the things we do to monitor quality control, we do other things, is also we monitor the number of maternal deaths in our hospital. And the number of maternal deaths for me as an obstetrician, and I had experience in low resource settings, was very low. It's always between 5 and 10 a year. Last year it was 10, but for 23,000 births, and also in a population with low quality antenatal care, a lot of intercurrent diseases. We very often discover at the moment of delivery that someone is diabetic because she was never followed up. We discover that someone comes in who never had antenatal care with a blood pressure of 210 over 130. So all this safety net to catch the problems before they become manifest is at least malfunctioning. And yet, in such a difficult environment to work in, we managed to keep maternal mortality extremely low. And we also analyze why mothers die in our facility. And 8 of the 10 maternal deaths of last year were really women who arrived nearly dead, moribund, and who died 1 or 2 or 3 hours later. Like someone, I know that the public is mostly medical, but I saw, I think, 3 or 4 of the maternal deaths in the 9 months that I was there. One was a patient who unfortunately had eclampsia, arrived in kidney failure, had probably had a stroke because there were some lateralizing signs, did not urinate and died 2 hours later. This was a patient that I thought I would have lost in Belgium. And the last time I was there in this year in May, we also lost, unfortunately, a patient, a very tragic story, but she died 20 minutes after arrival of presumably or a congenital heart disease or a cardiomyopathy linked to pregnancy. She arrived in cardiac failure with a saturation of 50%. So we really tried, but these patients I think you would lose in a Western country. The 2 patients that perhaps we could have done something about, both died of hemorrhage last year, and the hemorrhage was noticed late, but late meant 15 minutes late or 30 minutes late, not 5 hours late. And still the patients, I mean, one of them received 14 units of blood. It was not that the patient was neglected. So what MSF has been able to do there in such a special place on the world map with extremely lowly qualified, mostly female staff, is actually quite amazing, I think. So this was my Afghanistan presentation. I just wanted to show one more. You see, I'm not used to working with a Mac. One more, okay, I think this, yeah. And, okay, one more short video. It's a video where I speak myself. They interview me about the HOST project. It's always a bit embarrassing to show a video of yourself and to listen to yourself. But they also show the pictures that we have been able to make in the project and the staff working there.
My first mission was in Africa, in Sierra Leone, and my last mission was 2 months ago in Afghanistan, in Khost. There I've been returning in total 9 times. The first time I went there was 6 years ago, in 2012, and also very special for me personally to have been there since the beginning of the project. I physically saw the first baby being born there, and now MSF is managing in a very special place on the world map, a maternity where we manage 2,000 births a month. Afghanistan is one of the countries with the highest maternal mortality and also neonatal mortality in the world. And when MSF went to look into the Khost province, they saw that many mothers unnecessarily died, and that there was also a severe lack of qualified staff. So no doctors, very few midwives, very few hospitals, and many mothers and babies unnecessarily dying, and that's why MSF decided to go there. So first of all, MSF is offering quality care and for free, which is well, a major reason why women and families want their wife to deliver there. And I think also one of the major factors that played a role is the fact that it's a hospital women for women. So almost all of our staff are female, and the Afghani culture, especially in the rural areas, is still with a very strict separation of the sexes. So from the moment we opened, we said all midwives will be female, all doctors in maternity are female, and so this also offers the women a context where they feel at ease. But in the hospital, it's like we are in a kind of island of peace and quiet, and women taking care of women, a sisterhood of women. So they talk to the patient and they say, "Ye khore," which means, "Hey, my sister." So just a way of addressing the patient is, "You're my sister, I will take care of you." This also has as a consequence the few times that unfortunately we lose a mother a year, the staff is also very much affected. The staff has tears in their eyes, are crying outside together with us and together with the family. In Europe, or where I work, we have the impression that Afghani women are victims. All this is partially true, but I also met very strong Afghani women who are doctors, who are studying, who are really good midwives, who save babies and mothers every day. This is something you never hear in the world news. Everybody who has worked there will say the same thing, is you plant seeds and you get flowers. You give people opportunities and they take the opportunities. And this is very gratifying. I teach someone the first cesarean section, and then 1 year later she's doing everything herself during the night, just calling me to say, "Hi, I'm going to do a cesarean section," and I'm asking, "Are you fine? Should I come?" She says, No, you treat me, I will be fine. If there's any problem, I will call you." And usually she doesn't call. So this is really gratifying. You plant seeds, you get flowers, and the occasional rose.
So I imagine you have a lot of questions about Afghanistan. I prepared also to show also a different context where we work, and a few slides on Masisi in Congo, in the eastern part of Congo. I think I'll finish around 7:15, and then I will leave ample space for questions. And the country, I as a Belgian, we have a special connection with DRC, with Congo, because it's our former colony. It's 80 times my home country, so it's Congo is about as big as Western Europe, or at least large part of Western Europe. Congo is also one of the few countries in the world where all 5 sections of MSF are present, and usually this is not a good sign for the country. It means that the needs are really high. The 2 others that I know of is South Sudan and the Central African Republic. Also the 5 sections are there. And I think now in Iraq at least 4 sections are there and maybe a 5th one also. So this is also a sign that the needs are unfortunately really high, and Congo is always on the list of the 5 last countries on the Human Development Index, usually the last or the one before last, together with Niger. So the project of MSF is in Masisi in the North Kivu, very close to the border with Rwanda. So this is Masisi. The city of Masisi itself has around 25,000 people living there, but you can see also there the population is at least 2 or 3 times higher because of the refugees in the area. They live there. And this is the situation of the roads in Congo, and this was a difference with Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, the road network is quite good. In Congo, well, this is a large road between Goma and Masisi. Goma is a very big city. So, and this was even the dry season. In the rainy season, these types of roads can take you 2 or 3 times or 5 times as long to get there. Also there are large part of Congo is inaccessible by car. The only way to get there is by plane. And if you really have to go to the villages, there is villages where you just can go by motorbike or even on foot because there is no road network. So this is also one of the challenges that MSF faces if you want to do, for instance, a vaccination campaign. And it's a major challenge that the population faces if they need to come to the hospital, because if they have the complication during labor. So MSF is since 2007 in Masisi in North Kivu, and MSF is also non-stop already 32 years in Congo, DRC, and we are on Wikipedia even for Masisi. So Wikipedia says about MSF, in Masisi we treat civilians and fighters from all sides of the conflict, and the conflict is mainly because Masisi is rich. Congo is a very rich country, but not much of its wealth is going to the population. It's rich in minerals, and this was also just a map to show. So the region around Masisi is rich in gold, coltan and tin. Rwanda also is alleged to be trading in fraudulently exported gold and diamonds from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So as actors, you have the Congolese army there, you have many different groups of rebels, and you definitely also have the Rwandese there who come and take the riches of Congo. So there we are. So we are in Masisi since 2007. So we support the hospital and some health centers around. So this means we give the patients free healthcare. We give free ambulance transport because ambulances is very important. If you cannot go from the primary level to the secondary level, you will have unnecessarily women dying. We also make sure there's new and clean medical material and beds. And we have between 10 and 12 international staff, a midwife, a surgeon, a gynecologist, but it's a position 6 months a year, not a full year. And when we arrived in 2007, the staff is staff of the government of the Congolese government, but the staff had not been paid for a year and a half. So of course they were charging money to the patients, but it's only human. The staff also needs to feed their children and to send them to school. So we do pay. The staff is called in French a prime. We give a salary. In principle, they should get additionally also their government salary, but in practice, it's very often their only source of income. So this was some pictures of the hospital. A pregnant woman and her child waiting to be seen. And then also a boy who had lost their leg. And this is what is very often used in Congo to transport pregnant women, the motorbike. So one person in front of the woman and one person behind, so that she's being held on a motorbike. This was the ER staff together with the ER doctor. And this also just to show, to go to one health center, this is Eva, she's a midwife. So this is a bridge, and you cannot cross this bridge by motorbike, so you need to walk. And also, if they had in this health center a pregnant woman with complications, she needed to be carried across the bridge in order to get another means of transport to go to the hospital. And this was in Congo far more a problem than in Afghanistan. And in Congo, we also, in Afghanistan, most women who came to the hospital, when we asked how long did you travel, they said 2, 3, 5 hours was already long. Sometimes we had the occasional one who had traveled like 10 hours. But in Congo, we regularly had women who said, I traveled for 1 day. And in Sierra Leone, I met women who said we traveled for 4 days to arrive to the hospital. So what do we do in Masisi? When we arrived, they had 80 deliveries a month. Now they have 400. 25% are cesarean sections. Why is it so high? Because the normal deliveries, this is a difference with Afghanistan, the normal deliveries happen mostly at healthcare level, and there are more home deliveries there, exactly because the roads are so bad and it's difficult to get to the hospital. And we have 6 local doctors. None of them is a specialist, but they can all do cesarean section. And the role of the expat gynecologist is mainly mentorship and training. And a large part is also preventing the unnecessary cesarean section. Like there was, especially when we arrived, a very strong reluctance to do, for instance, a vacuum delivery or an instrumental delivery, or if a patient had had a previous cesarean section scar, they were very quick to go to cesarean section. So the role of the expat was more like, okay, let's try for normal delivery, because also in the Congolese culture, the average parity per woman is still around 5 or 6. In the beginning, we put tents because we didn't have space for all the beds, because we saw immediately, because we offered care of acceptable quality and for free, an increase in admissions. And so we built a new building, and we also provided family planning after delivery and postnatal care. Antenatal care was done at healthcare level, and we provided safe abortion on request, a service that we don't provide in Afghanistan, not because we don't want to, but only for our own safety. In Afghanistan, well, the law is strict. In Congo, the law is also very strict. Abortion on request is not allowed. It's only to save the life of the woman. But in Congo, we regularly provide safe abortion on request, so not only in cases of rape or in case of malformations. We also take care of, unfortunately, many survivors of sexual violence, 500 new cases a year, so that's a case, 1.5 new case a year. We give the immediate medical care, like the PEP if they come within 72 hours, and hepatitis B vaccine, wound care, the morning after pill, and antibiotics to prevent sexually transmittable diseases, and also psychological support. And also something that we discovered was one of our local nurses who was working in this service and whose only job was the whole day listening to these horrible stories, because also more than half of the women had been raped by 2 or more men at the same moment. She also needed psychological support. She became depressed exactly because of the work that she had been doing, and it's something we hugely underestimated in the beginning. And also, just as a small detail, the psychologist was a Congolese local psychologist. He was very good, and he was a man. And in the beginning, I asked, is this acceptable in the culture that the psychologist is a man? Because I was very often taught, like for survivors of sexual violence, also for male survivors of sexual violence, be assured that the staff are preferably women. But they told me, like, in the culture, in this culture, there is no problem. It can be a man. And I also did not have the impression that women had issues disclosing or talking to him because he was a man. And this was contrary to what I expected. Also, we published our Masisi data. we looked like what is the quality of care or what we offer. Did everybody who was eligible for the PEP receive the PEP? Did everybody who asked for an abortion receive the abortion? And this was published in PLOS ONE in 2014, and it was our 2012 data. This also, we think, will be more in the world news because also Dr. Mukwege received the Nobel Peace Prize exactly because of his work, mainly operating fistula in women who were survivors of sexual violence and who had extremely bad wounds. I knew of one patient when I was in Masisi, it's in North Kivu. The hospital of Dr. Mukwege is in South Kivu, is not that far away, it's a Panzi hospital. And I remember one patient with a very complicated fistula that we referred to the Panzi hospital, and she got surgery there. So, and also we built a maternity waiting house that was very popular exactly because of the transportation problems in Congo. So mainly for women who had previously complications in pregnancy, like a previous cesarean section scar, previous eclampsia, a previous stillbirth, or who live very far. And women can stay until delivery in a safe environment. So we needed to put bunk beds. This was not the first plan, but we lacked beds. So, the women were not sick. These were just women waiting for deliveries. So we also created like some activities for them. There was a possibility to do knitting, to make their own food, also to keep them busy while they were waiting for the delivery. And our anesthetist and surgeon, when I was there, they were a couple and they sponsored also a kind of knitting machine to provide income generating activities for the women. So, and then just the last pictures to give you a better idea about the expat life in Congo. So this was where we stayed. And then so in Congo at that time there was no cell phone network. And so the only way to communicate was through radio. And during the night we switched the radios off because if not you don't sleep because of all the noise. So the guards had their radio on. MSF works nowhere with armed guards. The only place where I know of that we worked with armed guards was Somalia, which we left. It's just someone sitting in front of the door and preventing, well, by sitting there, people to come in. So the guards needed to wake us up during the night if they needed one of us. So the ones they needed most was the gynecologist or the surgeon and the anesthetist, and they had the annoying habit of waking the wrong person. So someone with a drawing talent made sort of drawings for the guards to say like the surgeon is sleeping there. The surgeon and the anesthetist were a couple, but I don't think the guards really knew that this would be a gynecologist. So, and this was our activity at night. You see, knitting was very popular, not only in the maternity waiting house, because also the possibilities of going out was extremely limited. And so we talked a lot, and the smokers smoked a lot, and the people who loved knitting knitted a lot. So that was nice. And also at that time we didn't have internet. And this was the only bar next to the hospital of the whole of Masisi. Baridi means cold in Swahili, but the beer was not cold, the beer was warm. But like there also electricity was a problem, and I think the batteries of the fridge very often were not working. But like the Primus is the national beer of Congo, and the bar owner was very happy with the MSF people. Well, we were very important, I would say, in his income generating activities. So, and this leads me to thank you all. This picture is a midwife who gave it to me. It's triplets from Chad, 3 boys, all 3 more than 2 kg, a normal vaginal birth, and everybody, including the mother, was fine. Thank you so much. Questions, things, clarifications. Do I give the microphone to the people? Oh, thank you so much.
On one of the first slides, where you had the different activities that we do, it said also female genital mutilation. I'm not sure exactly what we're doing in that area, or not that area, but you know.
We are not doing enough. This is what I find, and it's also what the Nordic countries. I mean, I've given also a presentation in Norway. We should be doing more. So what we do is. OCB used to manage maternity in Sudan, where female genital mutilation, and especially the type 3, was very prevalent, so that the vagina is completely closed. And so what we did was, after delivery, we did not close the vagina again, even though most of the families and also most of the women requested it. So we don't do re-infibulation after delivery, even though we know that some of them will do it in the culture with unsterile material. So this we don't do. And then in Egypt, for instance, this is a project that I know quite well. It's a refugee project, so mental health and care for refugees who are victims of torture or victims of sexual violence. The refugees in Egypt come from countries where female genital mutilation is very prevalent. They come mainly from Eritrea, Ethiopia and Sudan. And in this specific population, we have also paid for de-infibulation. Like if they arrive with a type 3 female genital mutilation, we don't have a hospital in Egypt, but and they ask us, please, I cannot have sexual intercourse, or please, I have chronic UTIs. We do pay for this specific care for this population. But MSF up till now has not really taken a lead in the fight against genital mutilation. It's also a very complicated issue. The country, well, where I've seen it the most is Sierra Leone, because I worked there like 7 or 8 months. 95% of the population, of the female population, had it, and it's women doing it to women. It's the grandmothers, the old women in the community, and they really truly believe that they're doing something good for the girl, because if not, she will be a prostitute, or she'll be sleeping around, or she'll never find a husband. And it's luckily also one of the things, at least, that has improved the last years. It is going down also in Sierra Leone, and it's one of the things you see that as everything improves with female education. Sends the mothers and the families to school, and the child is less likely to get female genital mutilation. But also a personal experience. We had an expat gynecologist coming from a country where West Africa, female genital mutilation was very prevalent. And he has done many missions for MSF. And he told me, while he was on mission, his 5-year-old daughter had her clitoris removed by the mother and the grandmother, because they thought they were doing something good for the girl. So even in this rich, I mean, in the culture rich, an educated family, it still was happening. It's a very, very complicated issue. Do I think personally MSF should do more? Of course, but there's many priorities in the world, and also what I also think is, like, it must not be seen as someone Western imposing something. That it should come also from African women, and it is coming. I mean, it's something that improved a lot the last 30 years, and I really hope for more and more improvement.
Yes, thank you very much, Serene.
Pleasure.
And I'm thinking about, I mean, yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, I don't know how it is. I feel like the number of the females that we treat is increasing certain ways. I mean, the 10 million consultations that we have done I don't know the number, how many are females, how many are males. But when it comes to certain conflict areas like Yemen, Iraq, those conflicts are mostly trauma cases. I don't know how many of those cases we treat. Females as well, and same time when it came to mental health consultation, it was like around 400,000, but there we don't see the numbers between the females or males. Do you have any numbers on that?
What I can say is about surgeries every year in MSF, between 1 in 4 and 1 in 3 surgeries, so between 25 and 33% of all surgeries done is a cesarean section. So for surgeries, it will be the majority female for sure. For outpatient consultations, I also think that the majority will be female, because we do already almost 1 million antenatal consultations, and we do 150,000 family planning consultations, which should be a family matter, but in many cultures is a woman's matter. So I do think that the majority is female, but I don't dare to put a percentage upon it.
But at the same time, most of the projects seems to be, we have like 38%, 40% of the projects in stable areas, and then like 35 and 25 is in a conflict area. I mean, majority is the challenging areas. I mean, is there any way how we start our projects when it comes in a conflict area or in a stable, or are they similar more or less?
Well, I think if it's conflicts, that you would expect more and more disruption of the normal healthcare system. I would associate with a typical stable area project is like the refugee projects in Europe. The ones in Greece, the one in Italy, in Sweden also you had a mental health refugee project. Well, if you look at Afghanistan, of course, I would like to go openly to the culture and say we offer care for sexual violence, but this is a security risk. And also, if that many women are still dying because they don't get a cesarean section, then also you should prioritize the normal obstetrical care. Even though also in Khost there is care for victims of sexual violence available. But because the hospital sees only pregnant women, we only see the women presenting in pregnancy, and it's almost always intimate partner violence. So a woman who is mistreated by the family or by the husband, and then the medical care is less important. Usually we don't give PEP unless the woman specifically wants it. It's more the psychosocial follow-up and the mental health support. And in this culture, 99% of women goes back to the husband. I've only known a few cases where all women, 2 women, 1 midwife, victim of intimate partner violence, and 1 doctor, victim of intimate partner violence, where their families were very supportive and they left the husband and went to live with their family again. But for this, you already need a quite powerful family, an understanding family, because life in Khost, when you are divorced or when you're living separately from your husband, you're also an outcast in society.
Just one question. I want to draw a kind of similarity between when in Sweden, for instance, for surgeons, because you don't have as much trauma as you had long time ago, many surgeons go outside in South Africa to train, to work with trauma, because you have few of them in Sweden, but really huge number in and more complicated in South Africa. And then, in that sense, you see an added value for Swedish surgeon going to operate in those countries. When they come back, an added value for the Swedish healthcare that is brought from other countries. So now, looking into the obstetrician, Swedish obstetrician, we will recommend to go to work in the countries where we work, obstetric. What do you see that they could bring back that could be very interesting or important in the work they do here in Sweden?
I think, at least for me, working with MSF has been really an enriching experience, and also for my skills. Like the first eclampsia patient, I did 1 year of my training in South Africa. I saw in South Africa. I had never ever seen eclampsia in Belgium. I had never ever seen a uterine rupture. And now I don't do that many calls anymore. But when I was being a lot on call, the midwives, and this is just personal, they loved working with me because I was the one who let them do. I was not going to micromanage their job because I knew they would do well. And also they said to me, you stay calm. And I said, yes, I've seen all the disasters and I needed to be calm. And I've seen the disasters, especially when I was a young obstetrician in Sierra Leone, that you do a postpartum hysterectomy with a nurse, and your anesthetist is a nurse who got 3 weeks of training in anesthesia. And you think, in my country, I would call 2 colleagues, 3 anesthetists, the urologist to send the ureters, and here I just do it and I hope for the best, which it's also 10 years ago that I did my first mission, and I can say also reassuringly, in many projects that we have, for instance, Afghanistan or Pakistan, you will not be the only obstetrician, but you learn a lot. They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and it's really, really, really true. In Sierra Leone, I saw the whole obstetric textbook and sometimes all in one day. And you feel useful, eh? You apply your skills to save women and babies. And you come back and you say, thank you, God, that I'm working in Belgium where women have access, where healthcare is almost for free, and where no one unnecessarily dies. Because you have seen the other side of the world.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
Thank you very much for an excellent talk and presentation. So I'm Ibi, I'm from the UK, and I'm a trainee obstetrician and gynecologist. And I was just looking mainly at the UK website as to what's required. And they say you need to have at least 5 years of clinical experience before being sent out on a mission. And from speaking to other people, like you said, in terms of the myths, the missions are only really 6 to 9 months at a time. So I'm really happy to hear that you have shorter missions to sort of acclimatize yourself instead of being dropped right in at the deep end. But my question really is there a different preparation process before you go out when it comes to different lengths of missions?
No,
and what does that involve?
The preparation process is the same. So most of the people who leave will be offered a PPD, like a course to prepare them before starting. And we also organize courses for obstetricians. It's not sure that you can do this before your first mission, I'll be very honest. If you do a mission of 6 weeks, well, it really should be like a good coincidence that just this course is just when you are going to go on a mission. And also to give an illustration, like in HOST 2017, because we have now there 3 obstetrician positions, the national staff saw 18 different obstetricians in one project. Because if you have 3 and they all stayed on average 2 months, there's people who stayed 6 weeks, there's people who stayed 3 months. So, and also to hold a plea how I admire the national staff, just to be able to handle this, 18 different people telling you what to do and what not to do, even though there are protocols and we ask the people to stick to the protocol, but everybody has a different way of working. It's quite amazing. I find that they're able to handle it, yeah. But so, for instance, if we get a CV of a young obstetrician, let's say 31 years, recently qualified, we will try to prioritize that she or he goes to a mission where she is not on her own. And from the UK, it's one of the few countries that we even have taken people in training, because in the UK, to my knowledge, is the only country in the world where now the specialization is 7 years. In Belgium, it's still 5 years, and in some of the Latin American countries, even 4 years. But this also is becoming more and more problematic. For instance, in Pakistan, the Pakistani government really asks that everybody is a qualified specialist. So a trainee we cannot send to Pakistan. And for also medical legal reasons, I prefer to send qualified specialists. If anything happens, we might be accused of putting trainees in positions that they were not ready for, and this is not ideal. And the thing that I think kept me sane in my first mission in Sierra Leone was the year that I did in training in South Africa. Because there I was like thrown in the deep, but still with a safety net. There was a consultant to call, and they even sometimes came out. But if you just have practiced in a Western country and then you go out with MSF, the first month will be not easy. Unless you are in a project as host, and this is the luxury also of having 3 obstetrician positions there, that we try to send someone experienced together with you to help it go smoother.
More questions? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Now we all go for the drinks.
Yes, there's some drinks, yes. Yeah, thank you very much, Severine. And if you have any questions, you can just go to MSF site, the Swedish Läkare Utan Gränser. And just before finishing, we have Randstad here to want to talk for 2 minutes about their collaboration with MSF.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Severine. That was truly amazing. Thank you for sharing. This is my second time here, and I am truly amazed about the powerful work that is being done by MSF. So thank you for sharing. I am here to just grab a minute or 2 of your time, so I hope you are fine with that. And to tell you about the Randstad Cares collaboration with MSF. We are very proud to have this collaboration, and the collaboration is with us, Randstad Cares, a HR service company. And I will take this in Swedish. I hope that's okay with everyone. Vi på Randstad Care har ingått i ett samarbete med Läkare Utan Gränser, och vi är jättestolta över det. Och syftet till det här samarbetet är att öka inflödet av antalet sökande till fältarbete för Läkare Utan Gränser, och också kunna bidra till att skapa möjligheter att kombinera fältuppdrag med arbete hemma i Sverige, som vi har förstått det är många som känner oro kring. Nu som Severine berättade så finns det ju möjligheter att åka iväg på uppdrag som är 6 veckor, så korta som, så att man kan kombinera arbete. Men när man är iväg på längre uppdrag så vill vi också bistå med att kunna kombinera uppdrag med Läkare Utan Gränser och uppdrag här hemma i Sverige. Så att man får jättegärna ta en kontakt med oss. Vi kommer stå här, jag och min kollega Anna-Katarina kommer stå här nu här efteråt och berätta lite mer om vad vi arbetar med och vilka uppdrag vi har inom gynekologi och obstetrik just nu. Så att ni får jättegärna komma fram och prata lite med oss och se hur man kan kombinera arbete på Läkare Utan Gränser med arbete med oss på Randstad Care. Randstad Care. Ja, det är bemanning och rekryteringsföretag. Så vi jobbar både med bemanning och rekrytering till fasta tjänster. Det här samarbetet rör ju framför allt arbete med, eller samarbete vad det gäller då bemanningsuppdrag som vi har. Vi tidigare Profiskar, som fler som arbetar inom vården kanske känner igen, och vi blev upphandlade av Randstad årsskiftet 2015-2016. Så jag tänkte vi står här och ger lite information för er som är intresserade. Tack så mycket.